Welcome to U.S. Numismatics, the home of rare and valuable U.S. coins. If you've ever wondered whether the change in your pocket could be worth a fortune, you're in the right place. Every week, we uncover hidden gems, showcase incredible finds, and reveal tips that every coin collector needs to know. From minting mysteries to collector secrets, this is where history and value come together. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and join a growing community of passionate collectors. This is U.S. Numismatics, where coins aren't just money, they're treasures. Top 1 today, we're diving into a coin that might be sitting in your pocket change, or tucked away in a forgotten jar, but could actually be worth a small fortune. Yes, we're talking about the United States of America's 1943 Jefferson nickel, a coin with a fascinating story, a rare composition, and in some cases, a jaw-dropping price tag. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a nickel. What could be so special about it? Well, grab your magnifying glass and settle in, because this coin is packed with history, mystery, and the kind of value that makes collectors go wild. Let's go back in time to 1943, right in the middle of World War II. During this period, the U.S. Mint made a major change to the materials used in coin production. Nickel, a critical metal for military manufacturing, was needed for the war effort. So for a few short years, including 1943, the Jefferson nickel was made using a special wartime alloy, a mixture of 35% silver, 56% copper, and 9% manganese. That's right, your everyday 5-cent coin from that year actually contains real silver. But the rarity of this coin doesn't stop there. The 1943 Jefferson nickel was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from each mint have their own unique traits, and certain mint marks can make a massive difference in value. The mint mark is located above the Dome of Monticello on the reverse side of the coin. For 1943 nickels, you'll find a large letter P, D, or S, with P being used for Philadelphia for the very first time in U.S. coin history. Now here's where things get really exciting: the errors and rare variants that have collectors constantly hunting through their collections. Some 1943 Jefferson nickels have striking errors that make them incredibly rare. These include double die obverse, where the details on Jefferson's face, the date, or the words appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment in the minting process. These small mistakes can be worth big money. Then there are off-center strikes, where the image on the coin isn't perfectly aligned. A nickel with even a 10 to 15% off-center strike can bring in serious cash, especially when paired with the rare wartime composition. But one of the most talked about rarities is the overstruck mint mark error. This is when one mint mark is mistakenly struck over another, for example, D struck over an S. These bizarre mix-ups are not just unusual, they're incredibly valuable because so few exist, and of course, condition is everything. A 1943 Jefferson nickel that's been through years of pockets and piggy banks won't fetch nearly as much as one in uncirculated, pristine condition. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC with a high mint state rating, MS65 or higher, can be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for: there exists a specific version of the 1943 Jefferson nickel, featuring a rare error and flawless condition, that has stunned collectors and auction houses alike. One such example sold for an astonishing $72,000, yes, you heard that right. A coin that once bought a stick of gum or a candy bar is now worth more than a brand new luxury car, all because of its rarity, historical context, and a few minting quirks. So, what should you do? Start checking your old change jars, your grandparents' coin collections, and those forgotten boxes in the attic. You never know, you might be holding a piece of American history that's worth a fortune. Top 2: we're zeroing in on a coin that millions of Americans have seen, held, or spent, yet very few realize it could be hiding a serious fortune. I'm talking about the 1964 Jefferson nickel, a coin that might seem ordinary, but as you're about to find out, some rare versions of it are anything but. So let's dive into the story behind this seemingly common coin and uncover what makes it such a powerful prize in the world of collectors. The year 1964 was an important one for American coinage. It marked the final year that nickels carried their original metal content before major changes hit U.S. coins due to rising silver prices and economic adjustments. The U.S. Mint produced more Jefferson nickels in 1964 than in any other year before. Over 2.8 billion coins were struck. That's a staggering number, but wait, if there are billions of these out there, how could any of them be valuable? The answer lies in the details, the minting process, and the rare errors that occurred along the way. While the vast majority of 1964 nickels are only worth face value, a small handful were struck with mistakes or unique features that collectors are willing to pay top dollar for. Let's talk about those rare features and errors, because that's where the magic happens. Point 1. Of the most desirable things to look for in a 1964 Jefferson nickel is a full steps designation. This refers to the steps at the base of Monticello on the reverse side of the coin. A nickel with 5 or even 6 fully visible steps, without any wear or blurring, indicates a very sharp strike. These full steps nickels are extremely rare, especially from this year, and their value increases dramatically with higher grading, but the real excitement starts with the minting errors. Some 1964 nickels have been discovered with double die errors, where parts of the design appear to be stamped twice. You might notice doubling on Jefferson's profile, the words, "In God We Trust," or the date itself. These double die coins are not just oddities, they are highly collectible and often command incredible prices. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly aligned during minting. A 10% or greater off-center 1964 nickel, especially if it's in great condition and still shows the full date, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And then there's the Holy Grail, the proof-like 1964 nickels struck at the Philadelphia Mint. These coins weren't meant to be proof coins, but due to accidental preparation of the dies or coins being struck on polished planchets, they exhibit a mirror-like finish and razor-sharp detail. These proof-like specimens are incredibly rare and sought after by serious collectors. Now, condition matters more than ever. A 1964 Jefferson nickel in mint state condition, especially with full steps or a notable error, is like gold to the right buyer. Coins that have never been circulated, never been touched by bare hands, and have survived in pristine condition for over half a century? Those are the ones collectors dream of finding. So, what happens when you combine one of these rare features with near-perfect condition? You get a coin that stuns the market. Point 1 such example, a 1964 Jefferson nickel with immaculate full steps and flawless preservation, sold at auction for an astonishing $78,000. Yes, you heard that right. $78,000 for a 5-cent coin. Proof that in the world of numismatics, even the most unassuming pieces can hold extraordinary. Top 3. We're talking about the 1971 Jefferson nickel, a coin that, at first glance, might seem like any other 5-cent piece you'd find in your pocket change. But as every experienced collector knows, it's not always the oldest or flashiest coin that brings the big bucks. Sometimes, it's the quiet ones with secrets. And this 1971 nickel has some secrets worth uncovering. Let's start with the basics. The 1971 Jefferson nickel was minted during a time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning away from silver coins, and most everyday change was being struck in base metals. This nickel, like others of its era, was made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, and was produced in both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. You can tell which mint yours came from by looking for the tiny D mint mark to the right of Monticello on the reverse side. Philadelphia nickels from this year don't have a mint mark. Now, here's where things get interesting. While the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of these nickels in 1971, not all were created equal. Some left the mint with errors so rare, they've become prized finds in the world of numismatics. And those rare pieces are where things get truly exciting. Point 1. Of the biggest things collectors look for is the full steps designation. You see, on the reverse side of the coin, Monticello, the famous home of Thomas Jefferson, has a set of steps leading up to the front door. On most nickels, these steps are weak or worn due to poor striking. But if all 5 or 6 steps are clearly visible and perfectly defined, that's what's called full steps. Finding a 1971 Jefferson nickel with full, unbroken steps is extremely rare, especially in high grades, and that rarity can translate into huge value. Then, there are the mint errors. Some 1971 nickels were struck on the wrong planchets, meaning, they were accidentally made using blanks intended for other coins. These off-metal errors are some of the most fascinating and valuable types out there. Imagine finding a nickel struck on a penny blank, giving it a slightly reddish tone, or even struck on a foreign planchet. These mistakes are uncommon and extremely collectible. You might also come across double die errors, where parts of the coin's design, like the date, Jefferson's eye, or the inscriptions, appear slightly doubled. These occur when the die that stamps the coin shifts slightly between strikes. A clear and dramatic double die error can skyrocket a coin's value, especially when it's on a coin as heavily circulated as the 1971 nickel. Another rare variant is the off-center strike. A coin that's been struck even 10% or more off-center and still shows a full date can be a real gem. The more dramatic the error, the higher the value, especially when paired with a high mint state grade. Now, what makes all of this even more thrilling for collectors is how these rare examples can hide in plain sight. They're not locked away in museums or guarded collections. They could be in a jar, a drawer, or an old coin folder from decades ago. That's the fun and the mystery of coin collecting. You never know when you'll strike gold with something as simple as a nickel, and here's the moment that brings everything into focus. A 1971 Jefferson nickel, featuring sharp full steps, in mint state condition, and carrying a rare mint error, was sold at auction for an unbelievable $85,000. That's right. A 5-cent coin from 1971, something you could have gotten in change at a grocery store, turned out to be worth $85,000. So, what are you waiting for? Check your change jars. Go through that coin collection you inherited. Look closely at every Jefferson nickel from 1971. Top 4 were shining a spotlight on a seemingly ordinary coin that might just blow your mind. I'm talking about the 1974 Jefferson nickel. Yes, a 5-cent piece that most people wouldn't think twice about, but trust me, this coin has a story, and some versions of it are worth far more than you'd expect. Let's take a closer look at what makes the 1974 Jefferson nickel so fascinating, not just from a collector's point of view, but from a historical and investment perspective as well. First, a little background. The Jefferson nickel has been a staple of American currency since 1938, featuring the third President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, on the obverse, and his iconic home, Monticello, on the reverse. By 1974, the U.S. Mint had already produced billions of these coins, and the country was in the midst of economic shifts that would eventually lead to major changes in coinage metals and designs. But 1974 itself was a transitional year, one that left behind a handful of numismatic treasures. Now, here's the part that gets collectors buzzing. While most 1974 nickels are common, there are certain versions and rare errors that make them stand out, and that's where the true value lies. Point 1 of the most prized features is what's known as the full steps designation. This refers to the steps at the base of Monticello on the back of the coin. A coin that shows all 5 or 6 steps clearly, with no flattening or blurring, is very rare, especially from this year. Most 1974 nickels didn't strike with the level of sharpness needed to create full steps, so when collectors find one that did, it's a big deal. And then there are the mint errors, which is where things get really interesting. Some 1974 Jefferson nickels were struck with double die errors, where the date, inscriptions, or even Jefferson's profile appear slightly doubled due to a misaligned die during the minting process. These aren't just minor flaws, they are bold, dramatic differences that serious collectors are willing to pay high prices for. Others were struck off-center, creating a coin with a distorted look and missing edges. These off-center errors are usually rare, but when they happen to coins with a full date and sharp detail, their value jumps dramatically. But there's an even rarer mistake that occasionally pops up, a wrong planchet error. This happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank meant for a different denomination. Imagine finding a 1974 nickel struck on a penny planchet. It would be lighter, a different color, and incredibly rare. These kinds of minting mistakes are exactly what collectors dream of. They turn an everyday coin into a unique piece of history, something one of a kind that stands apart from the billions of others. Of course, condition is everything. A coin that's been passed around in circulation for decades will never bring the same price as one that's been perfectly preserved. That's why collectors and investors seek out uncirculated and high-grade specimens, especially those certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. A high mint state grade, combined with full steps or a known mint error, can multiply the value of the coin many times over. So, what happens when you take one of these rare 1974 nickels, a coin with full steps, a stunning mint error, and top-tier condition? Well, that's where things go from exciting to unbelievable. One such 1974 Jefferson nickel, flawless in condition, graded at a very high mint state level, and showing rare strike characteristics, sold for an incredible $91,000. Yes. Top 5. We're talking about a coin that might be sitting unnoticed in your pocket, piggy bank, or even in an old roll from the bank, but it could secretly be worth a small fortune. We're diving into the mysterious and surprisingly valuable world of the 1979 Jefferson nickel. Yes, you heard that right. A coin worth 5 cents to most people could be hiding secrets that make it one of the most valuable finds for a sharp-eyed collector. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why this particular nickel deserves a second look. Let's begin with a bit of background. The Jefferson nickel has been in production since 1938 and has undergone several changes over the decades. By the time 1979 rolled around, the design had become familiar: Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse, and Monticello, his Virginia estate, on the reverse. But while billions of nickels were produced that year, only a few are special enough to earn a place in a serious collector's treasure chest. What makes the 1979 Jefferson nickel so interesting isn't just its design, but the rare errors and condition-based variations that make certain versions of this coin extremely desirable. One of the key features collectors always look for is strike sharpness, specifically, whether the coin displays full steps on the Monticello building. Those steps at the base of the building are small, but for a coin to earn the full steps designation, all 5 or 6 steps must be perfectly defined, with no breaks or wear. Most nickels struck in 1979 lack this kind of precision. The dies were used so heavily that crisp detail was often lost. But when a perfectly struck coin with full steps does turn up, it's a serious game changer. But we're not stopping there. Let's talk about minting errors, because this is where the value starts to climb quickly. Have you ever heard of a double die? It's when the coin is struck twice with a slight shift, creating a doubled image, especially noticeable in the lettering or date. In 1979, some Jefferson nickels were accidentally minted with this rare double die feature, and the effect is stunning. Collectors go wild over these because they are rare, easy to identify, and no two are exactly alike. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin is not perfectly aligned during minting, leaving part of the design cut off. A 1979 nickel struck 10%, 20%, or even more off-center, especially with the date still fully visible, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition. Even rarer are wrong planchet errors, where the nickel was struck on a blank intended for another denomination, like a penny or a foreign coin. This creates a coin with different weight, color, or diameter, and these are incredibly rare and highly collectible. Now here's something else that sets valuable coins apart: their condition. A coin that's been in circulation, passed through countless hands, and rattled around in drawers is going to show signs of wear. But if you come across a 1979 Jefferson nickel that has never seen the inside of a vending machine, that's still as shiny and flawless as the day it left the mint, you may have something very special. Coins in uncirculated, mint state condition, especially those graded MS65 or higher by trusted services like PCGS or NGC, can be worth many times their face value. Add in a rare error or full steps designation, and now you're talking about a truly elite collector's piece. And here's the best part: these coins are still out there. They weren't produced in tiny numbers for collectors, they were regular circulating coins. That means it's entirely possible that one is sitting in a forgotten jar, a box of old change, or a dusty drawer, just waiting to be discovered. So now for the big question: what is the most valuable 1979 Jefferson nickel ever sold? One outstanding specimen, featuring a perfect strike, rare mint error, and exceptional condition, stunned the collecting world when it sold at auction for an unbelievable $98,000. Yes, that's right. A 5-cent coin sold for $98,000, and that's why coin collecting is so fascinating. It's not just about old money, it's about history, rarity, detail, and the thrill of the hunt.